right. We talked about all participants are muted. If you do have any questions, feel free to unmute or use the chat feature. We've got quite a few of us are monitoring that, so we'll be happy to answer any questions or feedback. Bookmark this link here. All these contents, like I said, are going to be recorded, and we're not the only user group doing meetings virtually. So we appreciate everyone joining us today. But if you go out to that link, that will contain a list of all the user groups and past presentations, all the recordings. We'll go ahead and we'll plug that into the chat for you as well. But bookmark that, and you'll be able to rewatch this and others anytime you want. All right, so today's agenda, we're going to kick things off with a little bit of announcements and some updates. We'll go into a presentation from Sean Spencer. We'll talk about chalkboards, whiteboards, and dashboards. Our very own Adriana, she's going to be talking about the visual analytics approach. Going to have a lot of fun doing that. We'll do some Tableau trivia, have some fun later today, and then we'll wrap up. So I'd like to introduce our Tableau, Phoenix Tableau user group leadership team. Destiny, Mujahid, myself, Michael, and Adriana. We're all here to make sure that you're entertained, informed, educated, just have a good time. So do reach out, connect with us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, all of those good things. All right, we're going to fly through some of these quickly. No, we talk about this quite a bit, but if you're brand new to, the user group Tableau, we'd like to promote things that are going to help you learn more about the product, data in general. And one of the things that Tableau offers is a data literacy for all program. This is free for everyone, no cost to this. So this is going to help you, your organization, your data teams become more knowledgeable and upskilled, at least in the foundational elements of data. So do check this out. You can go to tableau.com/learn/data-literacy. Sign up for that. It is part of the e-learning program. Yes, the e-learning program is a paid-for product, but data literacy for all, absolutely free. So please check that out. Did mention the e-learning. So while this is a paid-for product, this is going to really ramp up your skills, different learning paths. Whether you're a developer, a community leader, an executive sponsor, there's a program for you. So check that out, elearning.tableau.com. A lot of good information, help you upskill and get to where you want to go with the product. The brand new release of Tableau is out, 2020.2. We're going to cover quite a bit of that in the coming months, new features and capabilities. Really excited about. If you want a preview of always what's new and what's latest, you can go out to tableau.com/product/new-features. There's videos and information about all the capabilities that are coming out, little blurb on that. And if you want to download, you can always download that as a trial. Tableau Public is also a free version that you can really test drive a lot of those features at home on your own, and that's free of charge. So if you're not aware of Tableau Public, throw something in the chat, ask us, and we'll be more than happy to kind of steer you in the right direction. We always mention the Tableau certification. It's something that we're very big on. Not only is it a great way to show off your skills as a Tableau specialist, but it's a great learning platform too. So if you really want to understand how to use Tableau and make sure you're following best practices, all of these Tableau certifications come with exam guides. It's going to give you that prerequisites, learning opportunities, where you should go to get more information about said certifications. But again, really good program that will help drive your understanding of how to use Tableau. And I would imagine that most of you, if not all of you, are already part of the Tableau community. But again, if this is your first time here, you haven't done so already, please join in. We're so excited that you're here today to learn and have some fun. But go out to community.tableau.com, sign up. This is where you're going to be able to network and interact with the entire Tableau Salesforce community, get personalized information, search, information about products and features, capabilities, user group events like this, and especially new events, events coming up like Dreamforce. So speaking of Dreamforce, Dreamforce is Salesforce's big conference, and it is coming back in person. So if this is something that you're interested in learning more about, head out to salesforce.com/Dreamforce. This event is going to take place in San Francisco from September 20th through the 22nd. If you can't make it in person, they do have Salesforce Plus, like everyone, right? Where you can actually stream a lot of the content, certain keynotes and so forth. So head out to salesforce.com/plus. You can sign up there. And if by chance you do end up making it in person, fantastic. So with that said, we're going to introduce our first speaker, Sean. Sean is an analytics consultant with InterWorks. His presentation's on chalkboards, whiteboards, and dashboards. Sean, you with us?
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, great.
I can hear you. All right.
Cool. I am going to take the screen share if you don't mind, Michael.
Sounds good.
I put together some of my own slides to walk you guys through. Hi, I'm Sean. So I think we'll open up today's talk with a little bit about myself, kind of my journey on how I got to where I am, and then we'll get into some of the more interesting content further down in the slides. So I live in Oklahoma City. I've been here for quite a long time. I grew up though, kind of in New Mexico for 5 or 6 years, which would have been like some pretty important years to grow up in my life. So I do claim to be part desert lizard, much like I'm sure many of you can out in Arizona. I went to Oklahoma City University. It's a small private liberal arts school. I majored in finance and economics there. Which was kind of an odd choice for a school so proud of their dance and theater. But got to have a lot of really fun and interesting experiences there. And another interesting fact about me is that I had a restaurant for a little while here in Oklahoma City. So I talked my dad into opening a small food hall restaurant in downtown, and we closed it a couple of months before COVID happened, which turns out kind of perfect timing. Outside of that, I have 2 dogs and a 2-year-old daughter, and that really takes most of my time and kind of where most of my focus is in my life. As far as my career, so after college, I started at a e-commerce online retailer selling gold and silver bars on the internet. So that's kind of one of the little known facts about Oklahoma City is that we have the largest precious metals retailer in the entire world in our downtown. And that's really where I got kind of my foundation for how a business operates and how kind of getting to work through. I really started at the bottom there, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I started in shipping, right? So like I'm down in the basement, picking and packing orders, kind of understanding the operational workflow and how this product gets from the shelves to a customer. From there, I moved to accounting, and I was an accountant for a year, which was an experience. And I moved over to business intelligence just out of natural desire to automate some of these things that I was doing in accounting. After my time there, I went back to the university where I graduated from. So I returned to Oklahoma City University as a director of business intelligence, where my skills really had to pivot out of the day-to-day analytics and into a talent development and a leadership type role. Universities I quickly found are not for me. The environment at a small liberal arts college can be a challenging one to navigate. Very, how do you call a political drama, if you will, not to call out that university in particular. I think this is the case in most university environments. While I was there, though, I did become a client of InterWorks first. So they were offering a handful of services on the IT side for us, hosting virtual machines and of the such. And I was talking to our rep one day, and I was like, you know what, it might just make sense for me to come hang out with you guys for a while. And so I've been here for 3 years. As an analytics consultant at InterWorks, what does that mean? My day-to-day looks a lot like just working in Tableau and in Tableau environments. So I will be either on a short-term or a long-term engagement with a client. And that can look like 2 weeks, or it can look like 2 years, where I'm either sent in to do a short development of like maybe 4 or 5 dashboards, or on some of those longer ones, my task is to kind of fix anything that breaks, make sure the server's still running, and it turns a lot more into server and data pipeline management than it does like day-to-day dashboard management or development. But of course, you're going to get a mix of both. That's kind of what I'm up to right now. The things that I care most about would be the Oklahoma City Homeless Alliance. I donate a lot of my time, so InterWorks is pretty cool, where they allow me to kind of take on this client and not charge them for the services that I provide. So I've been working with them a lot on developing some dashboards and reporting and communication internally and externally for the city. And I also really enjoy working with the food bank. Hunger is something that's really, strikes large for me. So I like to spend my time organizing groups of my coworkers to go down and volunteer, and also working on developing relationships so that I might be able to position myself the same way that I am with the Homeless Alliance, where I can help them further their analytics objectives as well as delivering food. As far as my personal interests, I'm a pretty big nerd. Dungeons and Dragons, World of Warcraft rank really high. I recently got into F1. I'm having a lot of fun with that. And my COVID project was to watch every episode of X-Files. And I did it. I watched them all, and I like that series a lot. It's very good. Other fun fact about me is that I run the Tulsa and Oklahoma City user groups. And so if you guys are ever curious what we're up to, please come on over. Feel free. I'm always welcome to, more guests than less. So I see we have like 53 participants today as of right now. My user group's a little smaller. We usually ballpark somewhere around 30. Maybe we cover different topics. Who knows? I think Michael was just talking about how maybe the content for the coming months would be new features, and I think that is our intended next talk as well. But enough about me. Let's dive into the content for today. And what we wanted to talk about is dashboarding, whiteboards, chalkboards, and sometimes napkins, and really get into this process that I've been enjoying with my clients every time I start a new engagement, which is digital whiteboards, and positioning yourself so that you have a clearer, agreed upon vision with your client, and just some of the strategies that I deploy in the stages before I ever even open Tableau. So to think about dashboarding as a whole. So this is kind of like the informal process that we've outlined at InterWorks as this is kind of the dashboarding lifecycle. So, the first step is understand. You meet your client, you're asking questions, you're reviewing documents, trying to identify who are these stakeholders, what is it that they're trying to achieve, and what do they have available. Then you move on to this define stage where you're asking to review data. You're saying, hey, I need access to tables. I'm going to need to look at something tangible in order for me to build out these objectives, and getting maybe harder definitions on these metrics. Someone comes in and they say, I want to see some kind of conversion rate, and I don't know what that means. I'm not a digital marketer all the time. So I might ask for a harder definition on this formula or equation and have these documented, written down somewhere. And also in this define stage, I'm going to ask questions like, what is it that you're looking to do? And do you have any specific requirements for how that needs to be built or look or feel? Asking for things like style guides, colors, specific shapes or buttons. You would ask for access to their Tableau server to look at some of the products that they have available already. to help kind of put you in that mindset so that you're not building something that just feels totally different from the experience that their users are used to already. All of these things, of course, happen before we open Tableau. Once I have the answers to all of these questions and relationships established and kind of my points of contact, is when I will open up Tableau for the first time with a client and then begin to develop this vision that they have kind of laid out for me. And this collaborative process, you're going to work with them on designing that, and you're obviously going to run into roadblocks. One of the more common things that happens is, a client says, "Hey, I want this dashboard and I want it to look this way," and then you get in there and the data that they've provided might be different than what they even expected it to look like. I find this to be more the case with the larger businesses that I work with when teams are very separated. So sometimes your stakeholder will work in a certain department and they will also rope in an engineer from a different department that's going to be helping set up these table relationships and the data availability and such. And as a consultant, I'm kind of positioned in a way where I kind of need to help foster the movement forward between those two individuals as well. Like, hey, client X said that they wanted this type of information. What we ended up with was this, and this is the distance between those items, and help write a narrative of how we get there. After development is completed, we push that product out. And then of course, dashboards enter this refine and support phase where after a week or two, you're going to get user feedback. You're going to get notes or comments. Maybe things don't quite work the same on server. Maybe there's an updated Tableau version and a couple of things. It's not always pixel perfect. And then of course, support. Data sources change. Things break. It's just kind of the way things go. And so these last two steps are kind of, I don't know, circular, cyclical, maybe. I'm not sure what the word is there to use. Doesn't matter. But this is kind of how we view dashboarding. But let's focus in more on the whiteboarding phase. So here's a handful of the tools that we use. Napkins. I loved napkins. Napkins were my favorite. Napkins and sticky notes. They were my favorite when my job was in person, but I have gone full remote and I never plan to visit an office ever again unless I'm explicitly told to. I like them because they're small. I like them because they're square and they can be recycled, which is, always a big plus. I do not like chalkboards. They're screechy. They are dusty, and chalk is for sidewalks and children. While I might be a child, I'm not regularly outside by sidewalks. Although now that I'm saying it out loud, I feel like that could be a good activity to do with a client. I'm gonna write that one down. Whiteboards, most common, very available, colored markers everywhere, easy to see, easy to use, easy to clean up. But what's even better than a whiteboard is a digital whiteboard. A permanent living, breathing document existing on the internet. It's a collaborative space you can invite people to. They can mess it up really good. And you can control copy images into it, which is probably its greatest strength and feature. The three products that I've used for digital whiteboarding would be Miro, InVision, and Figma. Now, Miro, more or less for digital whiteboarding, these tools are very homogeneous. I think it really just depends on if you like yellow, pink, or multicolored. Miro, I'm not 100% certain on this, but I believe that they have collaboration with the Microsoft suite, and that can be folded into your kind of office suite. Previously, we used InVision. I think I experienced a little bit of frustration with it because in a single InVision board, you do have like the engine that renders images struggles once you hit a certain threshold of storage of images, right? So if you're copy pasting in a bunch of snippets or pictures, it's pretty quick to hit that threshold and the whole kind of environment starts to slow down a little bit. And Figma is what I use now. InterWorks has switched to it as our full-time tool, not for the whiteboarding properties, but for like the UX and design properties. So we have a design team that does a lot of web development and web prototyping for some of our other products that we have. And so since our design team liked it the most, that's kind of what I ended up with as well for like a commercial level license. But why the napkin, right? So like, why do I like using this term napkin? Why do I like this exercise or this activity to do with a client in that defined stage? And I realize at this point in my talk that that idea might still be a little bit ambiguous, but I promise you we're going to do one together and it's all going to make sense to you guys here in a little bit. But why do we do this napkin activity? And the reason why I like doing a mock-up or a prototype of a dashboard on a napkin beforehand is it's a fantastic place to get your first big victory with a client. I think that if you can make a simple drawing in a small space and get a client to agree that that drawing is the intended outcome of the engagement, it's a perfect first physical victory, right? We talk about like the psychology behind human empathy, and when one of your first encounters is an agreeable one, how that's going to set a tone for later in your relationship and project. That there's going to be a little bit more trust there, and it's going to be a nicer time. The other thing that I like about napkins is that they are low effort. It doesn't take much to get one blue pen and a piece of paper. They are low resolution. So, I'm a pretty bad artist. And this allows, that's the expectation of what ends up on napkins. And they're also low expectations. So Tableau is a wildly fantastic tool that can do so much out of the way, right? If any of you have ever watched some of the, Zen Masters compete or the Iron Viz, you can really put a computer inside of your computer using Tableau and make it do some wild stuff, but you can't do that on a napkin. And this really helps, I think, temper down some of the requests that clients may walk in with. I've had scenarios before where I started an engagement and a client more or less asked if I could build them like an entire CRM system in a dashboard. And that was a wild time, right? So like, can you get all of that information onto this napkin? And if you can't, well, then we might need more napkins. Also, this agreement does a fantastic thing with, here's a little buzzword for you, removal of technical debt, right? So we all hate technical debt. We hate creating extra work for ourselves down the road. So this exercise really helps save us some heartache in the develop, support, and refine stages of dashboarding. All right. This is an actual dashboard that I received from a client. I've anonymized this information. I've scraped it of most of the identifiable information. If any of you figure out who the client is during the call and you say it, maybe Michael will give you a prize. I don't know if he has those lined up. Oh,
We'll do it.
all right, great. Oh man, all right, hold on. Let me shove this dog out of here before we get going any further. All right, he's been released. So my charge, so this is a dashboard that I received from a client, and they said, hey, Sean, this is what we're using. We know it's not very good. We are but simple, digital marketing, customer engagement folk. We don't spend our time building Tableau dashboards or making anything beautiful. Can you help us? And I said, but of course. And so what you're looking at is a dashboard that is meant to evaluate the performance of a poll or question that has one of two answers sent out to customers to try and promote engagement. And so all of these metrics on this page are representative of how their users engaged with this question that was pushed to their mobile devices. And so at the top of the dashboard, you can see the question that was sent, which I have changed. So it says, this is a question. Would you answer yes or no? It has various information about the geography in which this question was pushed, its specific identification number, the dates that it was open to be answered by clients or by their customers, the location that it was pushed, the category, and if it was targeted, yes or no. And at the top right was a drop-down filter that you would select which question you wanted to see the performance of. So they have thousands of questions that they push to their client or their customers. Across the top are a handful of metrics like views, responses, response rate, new responses, and new respondent rate, new respondent rate. And then below that are all the same metrics, but within a 48-hour period. So really evaluating like, hey, we pushed this out. Here's how it performed in the first 48 hours. Above that is the performance of this specific question in its entire lifespan. In this middle section, they chose to create a fantastic lineup of 9 pie charts, which I don't know how the rest of you guys feel, but pie charts are definitely the best chart. I mean, we should use them a lot more because they're really good and helpful. And what these do is evaluate the answers of their customers based on the specific segments that they fall into. And below that are the percent of responses received by those segments. And I know that can be confusing. I had to go back and forth with them on quite a bit, but I'll explain that later. And then down below, of course, they have a timeline of when, from the moment that this was pushed out, how respondents answered to this dashboard or to this question. All right, and do we have any questions at this point? I don't know that I've been watching the chat. Do I need to stop and address anything?
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute or post your question in the chat. Earlier, Sean, you and I were talking. Does the approach that you take change when you're first starting out on a project and collecting requirements versus coming into something like this where you've got maybe something where it needs a little bit of tweaking, enhancement, or maybe pushing them in a different direction?
Yeah, so this is an example of a client that has a pre-existing suite of information. There was actually 4 other dashboards that went with this that I restyled for them. And yeah, I've absolutely been on engagements where I'm creating something net new, like kind of from scratch. And what I will say is different about those scenarios is, I still follow this same pattern of understand, define, and develop. But my understand and define stages might have a couple of extra steps where I don't want to say that this is the worst dashboard I've ever seen, but this is definitely something that I would build in like 5 seconds exploring information, right? So a client comes to you and they say, hey, I want to build a new dashboard that achieves these objectives. And you say, okay, well, what are those objectives? What metrics do you want on the page? Give me a data source to work with. And I might make something like this in Tableau first, just to validate some of the trends that exist in the data source. An example would be like down here at the bottom of this, we have a nice, beautiful time series here, right? Where we have full, complete data for 3 days. Sometimes clients think that exists and it really doesn't, or it's more staggered than this. Those lines wouldn't be drawn so clearly or connectedly. And so I would hate for a scenario to occur where I pitch designing something like this, and then when I go to render it, it just does, it's the data or the information just doesn't look that way, right? So we want to kind of design for the data that we have. Does that answer that question in full, Michael? I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, I think, and we have another question, maybe kind of piggybacks off that. But before we get to that, are you able to either put this in full screen or maybe collapse the preview so?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Things are a little
It's
bit
one of
bigger.
these button. Is it this one? Does that look like full screen?
There you go. That looks good.
Kelly always gets on to me.
I know.
She's like, Sean, put it in full screen.
All right. So one of the questions was, does your approach, basically change when you're working with internal stakeholders versus, your consulting?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I never formalized this kind of method until I became a consultant. We don't, at InterWorks, kind of funny enough, we don't do a ton of our own internal dashboarding development or analysis on our own data. Largely my time is spent working for external stakeholders. But thinking back, this is what I would have done every time with internal stakeholders as well, if I would have formalized it.
Yeah, and that's actually a good question. And I'll just kind of put my 2 cents out there just because. And I find it difficult because I am one all about kind of standards and following a methodology, and all of this is great information. And when you put it into practice, you can kind of reap the benefits. But when you're working internally and you get your boss or an executive that comes down and says, I need this, and you're like, well, why don't we go through the process and pretty much everything is then pushed aside and it's just get it done.
Oh, for
Um,
sure.
and so just trying to understand, around strategies maybe for that. I know we probably can't go through the whole thing here, like using Figma and Miro and things like that, but anything else to where it's maybe more formalized, so it's not just hacked together and it's like, all right, maybe after the fact we'll regroup and do some documentation. Have you been in those scenarios?
Um, no.
Yeah.
I have been in scenarios before where a client has an extremely quick turnaround. And so these become like high pressure scenarios, right? Where they're kind of projecting their own stress onto oh no, we have an
Yeah.
octopus invading our meeting real quick. Oh, that's fantastic. One moment. Sorry, sometimes your 2-year-old gets an octopus costume in the mail and has to come show you immediately.
Absolutely.
um, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I think that it was I have this formalized process, and sometimes a looming deadline or a personality of I need it right now can kind of try and disrupt that, right?
Yep.
Is that what we were talking about?
Yeah, pretty much. And it kind of throws the process out, and it's either you just get down and dirty and develop, or maybe like you said, your napkin approach, just something more rudimentary is
Yeah,
chalkboard, whiteboard, digital board, something. Just say, look, here's something really quick and dirty.
yeah,
At least
yeah.
you did something.
Right, and so I think the trade-off there is the exchange for, in my previous slide where I talked about technical debt. When this occurs, I would just make sure that you can absolutely, do you need this tomorrow? Great, I can do that, but be fully aware that the symptom of that is going to be technical debt, and that we're likely going to have to rebuild, redesign, and rework this information at a later date. And as long as they're great with that, you charge forward. I've built plenty of things that I fully intend to break months down the line just because they need it right now.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, I have like 15, 20 minutes left from my time slot before I start stepping into other people's time. So I want to take you guys to the digital whiteboard that I use and kind of walk through what this process looks like here. Unless there were other questions that I needed to look at real quick.
I think we covered most of them. If you do have any questions, post them in the chat and we'll get to it after the next segment here.
Okay, great. Oh, good. I love that everyone loved the octopus. Okay, cool. So can you guys see the my web browser?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this is Figma. This is the option that they've called Fig Jam, which I kind of like. And down at the bottom of the screen, we have a little toolbar where we have a handful of tools, a pen that we can switch to a marker or a washi tape or eraser. We can change the thickness of our pen and select a handful of different colors. We've got a couple of shapes that we can throw down, square, circles, diamonds, rhomboid type things. Oh, I didn't even know they had cylinders. Strange. And of course, sticky notes. So you can leave little comments for your friends. There is a text box option. You can draw lines or connectors between things that have different ending types. They do have a sections feature, which I really like and we will use for this exercise. They have some stamps. You can throw down little emojis on things that you like or dislike. Heart eyes is always a great one. And then they do have a handful of extensions that you can download and install. So one of the cooler things that happened for me, I may not have access to it in this specific workspace, but the designers at InterWorks actually made me a handful of stickers so that I can quickly go through this process, right? So they went ahead and made me things that I can grab and pull out onto the page. Their bar charts, line charts, pie charts, area graphs, and such that look just kind of standard or regular for me to fill in space when talking about designing a dashboard with a client. So without further ado, here is our dashboard. So I can hold the spacebar and kind of drag my screen around. I can hold control and use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. So here's the image that we have from our client. And here's some of the things that I ask a client when I go through this process with them. I grab this image and I write these questions on the page. And right now, you guys are my client. And this is the exercise that we're doing. And I'm saying something like, hey, what's the most important thing on this dashboard to you? I say, what we know about dashboards is that really people only look at them for like 20 seconds and they can take away like one thing. What is that one thing that you want them to know? And they told me on this specific dashboard that the answer to that is this, these response rates are the most important thing that they care about. So I highlight those and I say, what's the second most important thing? And they said the second most important thing to them are how the different customer segments responded to the question. And they said the rest of this is kind of supplementary, maybe. And I said, okay, that's great to know. Lastly, what kind of filters or actions do you need this dashboard to have? Right now, it only has the polling question filter. What else needs to happen here? And they said that, of course, that they need to be able to select the different polling question. But we went ahead and said that we could add a filter for geography. And with that kind of conversation out of the way, I moved on to creating my first mock-up for them. Move this over here. And so this is where I like sections because you can create this section and everything inside of it will move together. And so I kind of created this, this shape that's kind of a dashboardy type shape. And then from there, just kind of went wild on my own. And so what I'm going to walk you guys through is kind of what I designed and presented to this client. And the final product after conversations around edits or changes didn't end up too far away from this. And so welcome to a session where Sean kind of just spills his free-flowing thoughts onto a page. So the first thing that I did is I put a title on the dashboard. I like having a title. And I called it Poll Performance. And I'm also really bad at spelling, so big judgment from everyone. So I like my titles, just personally for me, I like titles to be all capitals and I like them to be bold. I really want people to know that what the name of this dashboard is that they're looking at. Maybe I'll go, okay, maybe extra large might be too much. I think large is good. And then we have this date range that the poll was ran for. And I think that's always important when we're looking at information or data. So I wrote something like, this poll was live on May 23rd to May 26th. Right, and so we can create a sheet that dynamically changes these dates based off of the poll that we have selected. I don't know how you guys feel about filters, but Tableau does have the expanding collapsing container. And so whenever I have filters, I always really enjoy throwing that little hamburger up in the top right corner. And then I'll draw like a little arrow and say, filters will be hidden in here. And I think that kind of completes the top bar. Oh, you know what? I think actually what I did was live in North America on these dates. A little bit more language in there, right? To include the geography, and maybe I would do something like bolding this to call a little bit of attention to it. And then from there, so I was thinking about just looking at how this information is displayed. So they've gone from left to right across the page. And I know what's visible now is not the exact numbers, and I kind of regret changing them as much as I did. But what I kind of quickly identified was that this number divided by this one gave me that response rate, right? So views to responses gave me the response rate. And then if I did new respondents, I got the new respondent rate. And so these numbers are kind of, related in a way. So kind of identifying that made this ordering make sense. And so from there, what I did was, instead of running them across vertically, I decided to stack them, because I think naturally what you want to do when you compare things is go from left to right, not top to bottom, right? I don't know that we look up and down to compare two items as naturally as we do looking at them side by side. So I put in this 50% and I made it really big. Maybe not that big, but yeah, like that big. And I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to get a little text. I'm going to call this response rate. And this will be small. We'll pair it right there. Copy, paste. New response rate. And copy, paste. And this would be the respondent rate. And we will shrink that guy down. New respondent rate. Now, the client told me that these are the most important things to be on the page. So we're going to fill in the other metrics real quick with new respond. Oops, maybe I did this in the reverse order. Now that I'm looking at it again. And we've got responses that I've spelled wrong, but that doesn't matter. Because what we have is 5 metrics stacked, some of them numbers, some of them percentages. Oh no. Feels good. Maybe we would just do a K here instead. And so that's how this process becomes a little bit more fun as we try to think about how we can make this information that much more readable. Okay, cool. And so I think what I meant to do was all of these were to be the 48-hour versions of the metrics from the top version. All right, so we've just taken our horizontal metrics and we've made them vertical and we put them side by side. And then what I ended up doing was taking these 50% ones and bolding them and turning them red. So they kind of pop out on this page, right? So these are what we said were most important. And of course, there's a lot to do about spacing here that can be improved on and made better before you show someone this. A lot of the times too, when I'm doing these little KPI cards, I'll include something like a percentage change. But since this is the evaluation of a single poll, I don't really have anything to compare it against. So I don't know that that would make any sense here right now. Okay, so we've got the top section of our dashboard kind of knocked out here. And I'd say we're out of the way, probably walking away with a little bit more information from those metrics across the top than we were before. But how would we tackle these bars across the middle? So what I actually ended up pitching was I came in here and I grabbed one of these shapes, I made it a square, placed it here, and I turned it gray. And then you can shrink up that shape, turn it into bars. And how many did we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 8. And then 1 was an aggregate, so 9 in total. And then we'll just kind of space those out across the way. How am I doing on time? I got like 9 minutes left.
Yeah, something like that. But I was going to ask you, I posted in the chat, you're familiar with the Tableau UI kit?
I'm not.
Oh, okay. So
Tell me about that.
well, if you go to tableauuikit.com, you know, it's a plugin that you can add directly into Figma to kind of streamline your Tableau development, I guess, your mocking up things.
Okay, cool. Love that. Anything that's going to make it faster or simpler. I always tell people, and in a tool like this, you should just use the things that you like and stick to what's familiar. That's kind of my advice, but I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, this looks a lot better.
Then I grabbed this and I moved it on top of this one and I messed with the colors. Yeah, so this one I did color on and the other I did not. And I think what I ended up doing was these segments, so type 1, 2, 3, and 4 were meant to be kind of paired together. And so those I made one color, and then like the male and female kind of go together. You're kind of split between the two. And then you have like your total. And then I think I threw kind of like a thicker line to kind of separate them. And of course, I've run out of space and my spacing is all weird, but this was like responses by segment. Maybe that's medium. Oh, you know what? I didn't even do it all caps like I said I would. There we go. And these were response by hour. And so there was more or less the same. Oh, okay, so this wasn't responses, this was response, right? So this is how they answer the question. This is like the split of yes, no by the segment. And this was the actual number of responses, respondents. There we go. That was the difference. I know it was very important that I get that changed before I send this off to a client to look at. But this is more or less the redesign that I came up with for this client. And so we've done this exercise in about 20 minutes where we looked at the dashboard, asked questions about the information that were on it, reorganized it in a way that just kind of removed a lot of the, what do you call it, the busyness, the lot, like all these dotted lines, got rid of these useless chart types, boiled it down in a way that's a little bit easier to consume so that we can actually compare these values side by side in a way that doesn't make it, more difficult for our user than it needs to be. All of the information that was here previously is still available in the dashboard, I think is one of the larger questions that I asked myself at the end of this activity. If I was to mouse over any single number on this left-hand side, would I still be able to find it over here? And the answer to that question is yes. And this is what I take to that next step. And I take it to the client and I say, would this satisfy your objective? And they were over the moon with this. What we ended up doing further down the line was actually even replacing this purple section in the background with some artwork that really kind of elevated that experience for them and made it branded, made it really stylized and really cool. Questions?
Yeah, this was really impressive. So you took something that was probably not as robust to understand in the dashboard and made it really simple. And I kind of commented here, these tools are great for iterative design. So if
Oh, right.
the
So
feedback was
that's actually a great point. Is I can highlight this whole thing, copy it, paste it. I have a double. And to be clear, like I do this every time too, and I guess I should have called this out. Sometimes I will present things with more than one option. Does section 1 look better or does section 2 look better? Do you like the bar or do you like the line? And show them alternatives and give them the opportunity to have a little bit of like buy-in or say so and not make it so final, right? The way that I presented this today, I knew the answer to the question. And so I naturally just gravitated towards that, but it's 100% a collaborative process. And going to your client with multiple revisions of a single dashboard is often like the best play. Thank you for reminding me of that, Michael.
Yeah, Allison put a comment in here that I'm assuming you'd put the labels on before the deployment. Users are often picking elements of a bigger dashboard and putting them in the presentations.
When you say the labels, Allison, maybe can you be more explicit?
On the bar charts.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I actually ended up doing something quite fun with the labels on those bars. This was the first time in my entire Tableau career that I did vertical labels. And so I actually had like this label and I turned it sideways and I put it by the bars like this. Oh, why did I capitalize that? That's strange.
Yeah, for like the axis, numbers and values. Would you put
Yeah.
those there as well?
So these ones were meant to be a this is a split. So your axis would be 0 and 1. And that's kind of how I visualized this one. Yeah, I tried to do it as minimalistic as possible. But yeah, I did put in a little bit more flavor than I did here, just in the meaning of time, right? So really trying to be intentional with like using these alignment tools to get everything positioned evenly and flatly. I did throw a couple more labels in there like this. And of course, like to your point, Allison, right, you want to throw the labels on there for things that are actually going to be materialized, because like we saw earlier, when I drew out this number, You might do a drawing like this where you leave your bars and lines unlabeled, and then when the client is like inevitably, hey, will you throw labels on these? You're not going to have room, and it could just entirely destroy. Like looking at this drawing, like, oh no, that would be awesome. This would look great, and then you throw the labels on there, and it just crowds the whole thing, and it looks bad, and then it's over flooded. So yeah, you want to try to get as close to the product as you can using this tool. I would say too that like, obviously we did this in 15 minutes. And again, I know the answer, so I knew the direction that I was going to take you guys. But if we were doing this exercise from scratch, I think that in total, to really come up with this design that made sense, it honestly takes about 4 to 6 hours to sit down and go through the information that you have available and try out a lot of different things. I think I went to this client with this dashboard with almost 7 different versions of this information reorganized.
Well, we had another question. So have you done, how would you mock up or mimic a tooltip behavior?
Oh, I wouldn't. That's yeah. What I would do is I would take this pen and I would take this line and I would draw a line over there. And then I would grab one of these shapes and I'd put it here and I would say tool tip. And then I would kind of put whatever information or format it in here. Right, the same way that we would, so like, you might say on mouse over or click, right? That would be a question that we would want to ask for the client. So I would leave that little question in here like, hey, do you want this to be a click tooltip or do you want it to be a mouse over? And if it's, a click, then we want to think about if there are actions that need to happen. So, right, that was one of the questions that I had for the development. It was what filters or actions need to exist here. If a click action needs to be in this dashboard, then yeah, we want to define like how that appears. Because a lot of the times, right, like this might not be enough information. We might want to cram extra stuff into the marks on the page.
Exactly. And there's quite a bit of chatter here. So, I want to make sure everyone's on the same page. So this isn't necessarily meant to become a polished version of the dashboard, like for like. It is a wireframe, it's a blueprint, is to kind of guide you in, how should you then take this and develop it into that said Tableau dashboard. So all these little tips and call outs that Sean's doing, tooltip here, maybe a click there, an action filter, whatever. You're going to have annotations all over this, hopefully when it's all said and done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they become kind of a scribbled mess, especially if you get one of this one coworker, William Jones. He really likes to use this red color whenever he comes into. So of course, like one of the greater things about this space is that I can invite my coworkers that are working on projects with me, or even the client, to come in and work in this space with me. Sometimes we create duplicates for the clients because we don't want them in there looking at our notes. But yeah, he'll come on with red pen and like scribble all over it and like circle things and like really just go nuts. And it drives me insane.
This is great. Any other questions, for Sean, or feedback on this? This was great, by the way. Fantastic.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I hope that this was helpful for you guys. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions on how to use this tool, or if you would like to see other examples, or just talk about, kind of working with clients to develop, products in this tool. It's the space that I work in most of the time, and I have a lot of opinions about it.
Fantastic. Sean, thank you again. Appreciate this.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So next up, we've got our very own Adriana, and her presentation is on the visual analytics approach. So very good segue into this. Adriana, are you on?
Yes, I'm
All
here.
right.
So thank you, Michael. Sean, I love what you just presented. I think I always say that I'm a consultant too, so it's interesting to see the different styles. And I will be I'm not gonna go as into much as detail as Sean did in terms of, you know, how to create the wireframe and what tools I use, but I will share my approach and kind of the design patterns I use. So it's just gonna be additional information, just complementing what the great job that Sean did. I love it. So let me share my screen, and then I'll go into presentation mode. So I call this the visual analytics approach, and as a consultant, I think I take a lot of the kind of steps that Sean went through. The interesting part I love about Sean's side is that you have kind of a square, horizontal way of designing, starting with the visual approach. I personally put them in a circle because I think that once you reach certain level, you gotta start all over again, right? Because dashboards and business requirements, gathering requirements will always be a continuous line. It never ends. It never ends. Every one of us who have designed dashboards and gathered requirements from a client, you know that it is a continuous process. You never hit an end line. So one of the things is that, as Sean mentioned, is it's very important that we start identifying who the audience is, right? Who's your audience? Because that's the first thing that is going to help you determine, is this dashboard needs to be an executive view for my C-suite? Is this dashboard needs to be in a management view for my manager? And it's just a different view. It's a different detail, right? It's a different level of detail for managers, as would you be for your C-suite, as will be for your operation analyst, for example. So knowing who you're building and understanding who your client or your audience or your stakeholder is super important, because then it's gonna help you strategize your requirements. As Sean mentioned, obviously, once you have identified your user, I say, okay, well, now it's time to ask questions about gathering the requirements. And I say, you know, when you go to the client or your stakeholder and you start asking questions about, you know, what actions, what insights, what are you going to use this for? What is the information that you're trying to gather? What is the message you're trying to communicate? What are the insights that you want your users to take out of this? Usually they're going to give you a list of 20 questions. You know, you're going to come up with a very long list. And I always tell my clients, and I always tell my stakeholder, okay, now that we have a list of 10 or 20 or whatever it is, let's pick the top 5. Let's start with the top 5 of those questions. What are the most important? What is the most important out of these that you want to take for now? And then the other questions become part of your enhancement list, you know, something that you're going to build up in the future. So I always help the clients to get from that long list to kind of the top 5 questions that the dashboard will answer. So I got my questions. Then the next thing in the process is identifying where does the data live, right? We got to go after the data. We got to model the data. We got to structure the data. We got to clean the data. There is a lot between the process of identifying where to go to get the data. Most of the time it could be in a lot of files that you got to put together. It could be in a multiple databases. Once you find the data, we know data is never clean. The data is never structured on the way we want and need it as developers. So we gotta transform it. So it's kind of the next part of the process. And notice that on my circle, I have these arrows back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And the reason why I have these back and forth arrows is that in every step of the process, you're never alone building this, okay? You always have to go back to your stakeholder or to your internal client or to your external client, and just to double check that while you're looking at the data, first of all, it's the right data, and you're still on track of keeping requirements and scope. And there are a lot of times where I start the process, I know my questions, I know what I'm looking for. Once I get to the data, I do a lot of discovery. I discover things that the client didn't realize, the client didn't think about, and then that's another discussion that you gotta go back to the client and say, for example, I discovered this in the data. How is this gonna, how does this change the requirements? Have you thought about A? Have you thought about B? Have you thought about C? In the majority of times, your clients will say, oh, I didn't think about that. Oh, that's a good point. Now we gotta remove this, or we gotta add this. Or this is a very, very, very important step of the process. Once you have identified your data, once it is what you're looking for and what your client needs you, we start building business. And this is super, super, super important. I always do a lot of emphasis on this step. We developers sometimes, we tend to build visualizations that we understand, okay? I may love histograms, I may love scatter plots, I may love box and whiskers. However, it is very important that you as a developer go back and think about who your audience is. What is the level of maturity on the data? How advanced are they gonna be in terms of looking at your charts and your visualizations, right? I wouldn't build something very, very fancy for someone who's just transitioning from looking at numbers in the spreadsheets to now dashboards. So you gotta make sure that the business that you build are not the ones you understand, but the ones your audience will be able to understand. So this is a very important step. Then you develop your insights, right? Like Sean demonstrated us, like how it was so important to make sure that your dashboard makes sense. It tells a story. I always say that dashboards are like jokes, right? If somebody tells you a joke, if you don't get it within 10 seconds, most likely, or even less, most likely it's a bad joke. So I always say, if someone is looking at your dashboard and doesn't get it in 10 seconds, most likely it's not a good dashboard. So that means you gotta go back to the visualization drawing and make sure that what you're building is your users or your audience are gonna be able to pick the message, consume the information in a very, very practical and fast way. And the next thing is, once that dashboard is ready, you give it to your users and they start acting and sharing out. It's super important in terms of the insights, right? So again, just to summarize this, understand what the dashboard will be used for. First of all, understand your audience. Then understand what the dashboard is going to be used for. That's a very, very, very important question. What decisions are we informing, right? And you as the expert, you're going to be able to guide your client the majority of the time, and has been my experience, and Sean, you may agree this, but when the client gives you a dashboard to replicate, that's great because they already have something to start with. But the majority of the times, a lot of this is going to be new work, and they may not know what they're looking for. So is your job as a developer help them find what they're looking for. So asking the questions is super important. And like I said, once you have your questions, make sure that you keep them focused on the most important ones, and determine where the data is going to live. That's a big step of the process. And then finally, decide how users will be accessing this information. Obviously, we're referring about Tableau, Tableau Server, Tableau Online, but there are other ways that you can publish your dashboards via other tools or via SharePoint or portals or places like that. So let me stop right there to see, do we have any questions?
Yeah, this is all great information. So Sean mentions, his favorite chart type is the box and whiskers, and it's also the most difficult to understand. Yeah, Sean, I'm actually with there too. So, one of the things I kind of put into the chat is, and you mentioned, Adriana, is making sure you know your audience and kind of their level of data literacy, for example. If you throw a chart out like that and they're more confused or don't know how to interpret that, I guess kind of miss out. What are you doing? I know you kind of talked to a little bit, but up front, how much time do you actually spend trying to understand where people are at and maybe how to help them going forward
So
in that respect?
yeah, so Michael, that depends. I have with my current clients, before we even get to the dashboard, we have spent a lot of time having workshops. We spend about we bring the main stakeholders into a room for like 3-4 hours, and we basically ask questions. We collect surveys on that audience. We collect a lot of information on what they're looking for, and we ask a lot of questions for that requirement session. It could be a long requirement sessions. There's a lot of discovery when you are building something brand new, like in the case of my current clients. And I prepare a lot of material to work on those workshops. Once the workshop has been created, we capture all the responses from the surveys that we did on the workshops, and then we work our list from top to bottom. We always put a kind of our surveys are based on top 1 to 5, and the scale of 1 to 5 was the most important, was the most relevant. And then after the workshop ends, we take a look at those responses. We put them on the scale of the most important to the least important, or the majority of counts or votes. And then from there, it really helps me to start thinking about where does the data live? How do we need integration work? Do we need to do data migration? Do we need to do data integration? So then if that's the case, we get involved with the data governance committee to work on those data modeling source to target. We bring data integration developers. We land the data in our data warehouse, and then from there, we start building the semantic layers that will reflect on the dashboard. So before the dashboard is a lot of work. There's a lot of work. It all depends where we are in the process. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. That's great.
Yes. So by the time you're building your dashboard, it should be because your data is in the right place, but we know that that's not the case a lot of times. And a lot of the projects has been my experience that the companies or clients, they bring you to build a dashboard. However, you had to help them establish a whole process of data acquisition, data modeling, data governance, and then at the end, data visualization. So there are a lot of steps before you get to the dashboard.
Sean kind of got that question earlier, but on your side too, do you handle things any differently internally than you would with the client?
No, I have 15 years of experience before I went to consulting. I had 15 years experience in working for companies directly, and my approach has been always the same. It's always the same. Go sit down, talk to the internal stakeholder, help them understand what they're looking for, have all those requirements before I start building my dashboard. So I apply the same methodology.
Nice.
Super important to be organized and create that structure on the BI teams on how to do it. So
love it. All right. Yeah, if you have any questions, with respect to that, go ahead and place them in the chat, and then we'll follow up with Adriana momentarily. So
that's awesome. So one of the things I would really want to talk about, because they're so important to me, like for Sean as well, and for I think any developer, any designer, it's really important to understand a couple of things. Do you remember that Sean in his when he was presenting the data, he asked the client, what are the most important numbers for you? And they mentioned two, and they want to make sure that those are highly visible, right? That's, to me, that's where the strategy, you have to think about strategic position of where you're gonna put your objects, your numbers, your metrics. The reason why, and this can be in a big debate, okay? I have talked to even my boss, his process of designing is totally different than mine. And there's a lot of people who don't agree to this, but I loved it. I follow it. I have implemented, and I think it has helped me being successful with my clients, where I think a lot about the Z patterns and the F patterns in terms of where to position my most important metrics. And the reason why I say that is because we in the United States, we read from top left to right. You know, you start with, the majority of us, we start on the top left, and then we read going to the right, and then we kind of follow this to the bottom, and then we go back again to the bottom right, where we tend to go and put our eyes as the first time where we trying to look for information. I got this image, this F pattern that you see here. I got it from my website, and actually there is a really good webinar Tableau has in its webpage. It talks about the eye tracking. Where does the eye tracks the information? And this creates kind of a F pattern. You know, everything on the light blue, it means people don't tend to bring their eyes towards. Everything on the orange and the yellow is where people focus their attention most of the time. So what does that tell you? That tells you that when it comes to positioning the most important metrics in your dashboard, you gotta understand how we consume information. How do we focus on information? This is not my dashboard. I downloaded it from somebody posted this on LinkedIn a few months ago. But this is actually the way I design dashboards. You know, these metrics on top, this is what I call it, the big ass metrics. And for me, that's where I will position my most important metrics, following by my most important visuals, like it has here. And then maybe my least important visual, I would always put it on the bottom right, and only because I'm following what I call the C pattern. And I like my filters on the left. It's not like I like it. Okay, I follow kind of the UI UX design of websites, where I feel like you can do if you can make a very good use of your filters, and instead of using filters, you use like actions where you can add more value. Like when you add a filter, you're not adding any information, you're using the real estate. But I like the hiding, the new functionality that Tableau has, where you can hide your filters. That saves a lot of real estate. But you can also use that section, that instead of bringing a filter, you can bring a bar chart and make it an action item. And then with the bar chart, you're also giving two options to your user. They can click a bar, and these will update based on that click. And they can also see immediately, they can see value on it. They can see, for example, where are the most important customers in terms of revenue, or they can see where are the biggest sales and based on products, or they can see, there's a lot you can add here in terms of using your filter space. I like my filters on the left. As Sean, I like a title. There's a lot of debate as to, hey, make sure that the title size is not too big, because you don't want that to steal attention from your users. You find a lot of methodologies out there, and it becomes a debate. Okay, I would say there is no right or wrong answer. what works for you and makes you successful to communicate with your internal stakeholders and your clients, use it. For me, the C pattern, the F pattern are the most successful design dashboards that I have created for my clients. Now, when it comes to this is the part I was telling you. I don't know why. Okay, so this is an old slide I found out there, and I always use it as a joke. I teach Tableau, and I always use it as a joke when I'm talking about this design section. You have to think about the attention span that we humans have, right? That's why I say pick the top 5. Don't overcrowd your dashboard. Okay, don't do a lot of stuff in one dashboard, because you're gonna lose your stakeholders or your clients. When you have too much to absorb or read, or you have a lot of options, you get what is called mental load, right? You get a mental load, and you're not able to consume the information. As I was telling you, a joke in a dashboard, you don't get it in 10 seconds. It's not a good joke. It's not a good dashboard. So think about the cognitive load. Okay, super important. It says that we have, in 2015, we had an average of 8 seconds of a span of attention. I think nowadays is much lower than that. Actually, I don't know how they measure this, but it seems like a fish has a greater span of attention. So it's kind of interesting. But back in 2000 was 12 seconds. Back in 2015 was 8 seconds for humans. I really think that now by 2022 is probably 3-4 seconds. We want things instantly. We want to be able to understand things immediately. So think about how it's super important. Think about the strategy of where you're going to position the information on your dashboard. How are you going to tell the story? And also think about number of objects you're going to think in your dashboard. Okay, don't go crazy. Don't try to answer 10 questions or add. That's why I say focus on your top 5. Okay, and teaching, when you want somebody to learn or understand a concept, the magic number is 4. You never want to teach more than 4 concepts at a time. So that's why pie charts, right? I'm not gonna get in the debate that pie charts are good or bad, but when you have more than 4 things to show in a pie chart, it's probably not a good use of your pie chart. Stay with 4, maybe 5, but no more than 5. It's the same thing that when you want to bring knowledge across in your dashboard, stick with a logical number of objects you want to put in your dashboard. Don't overcrowd it. Also think about your colors. Okay, colors are super important. You gotta know the least colors you add to your dashboard, it makes it cleaner, it makes it simpler, it makes it easier to consume. Remember too that there are a lot of blind color people out there, and their colors you should stay away. I stay away from green, yellow, and red, because those are colors that colorblind people cannot see, cannot understand, cannot differentiate. So that's why we have a lot of the color divergent. So there's a lot you gotta think about in terms of position, number of objects, and colors. That's super important. So before we get to the quick activity we have, let me see. Oops, I'm almost out of time. The activity is going to be fun. I just want to show you why it's so important to go visual, get away from tables, and start playing with your colors, with your sizes, with your bar charts. Any questions?
No questions. I think there's just some comments, kind of reemphasizing what you said and the importance. For me also, that attention span thing. If you can't come across, relatively quick, I think you miss your mark. So making sure, the context is there, how to interpret a dashboard, how to read it. We talked a little bit about it in here, consistency and standards versus, maybe free reign on design. I kind of get your take, maybe, Adriana, on, when you go into a client, are you also trying to push more of these kind of standards, or how does that look?
It depends. For example, my current clients, they had no standards when I came on board. And the fact that I came on board and I created a template with this kind of the F pattern standards, and I taught them how to use the color palettes of the company, how to use it, what colors to use. They loved it. They loved it because now there is a consistency across the organization, where now everyone who receives a dashboard from the central VI team, they know how the feel and look is gonna be. Their filters are always gonna be in the same position. The logo is always gonna be in the same position, and they know what colors to expect. They know what font to expect, and they also know what design to navigation they will expect. So they were very open to receive that, and it was a lot of value added. Their organizations were, they're going to bring you on board, and they may already have a lot of those things established, even though they may not be best practices, but they already have their internal employees use to a certain process and look and feel. So I'll still push and teach people about best practices. But in that case, it will need a little bit more of change management, because people are used to one thing. So it depends on the client.
Yeah, that's great. All right.
Good. So let me jump really quick. This is it's an activity. It's not going to take that long, but what I'm going to need everyone to do is, what we're going to do is, I'm going to pick a number. Right now, all you see is a table with numbers, right? And a lot of you, all you do of building Tableau, or all you get for your users are tables and numbers. And we're gonna go and understanding why going visually bigger in Tableau or any tool you have is super important, okay? So I'm gonna ask you to count a number without any formatting, and you're gonna, I'm going to open up my clock. And the first person who gives me the response, that's where I'm gonna stop the clock. Then we're gonna continue adding formatting to the count for another number, and we're gonna see how long it takes you to count the number with that formatting, and by adding a couple of things. So what I want you to see on this exercise is, as you go visual and add more formatting and things like that, how easy and how fast your brain works. Okay. So the first person, I'm going to stop the clock for the first person that gives me an answer. Ready? Okay. So I'm going to change the number, and I want everyone to tell me how many 9s you see. Do we have an answer? Okay, so I'm gonna stop the clock. It took 17 seconds for the first person to tell me, 17 seconds and almost 18 seconds to find how many 9s it is. There is no formatting. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna change the number, but I'm gonna add some color. So I'm just gonna reset my clock. And I want you to tell me how many 7s you see. Okay, I got the first answer. So before, the first answer took almost 18 seconds to come. Now by adding color, the first answer came in 5 seconds and 31. So you see how just adding a little formatting on this table made it really quick for you to consume and look for the number you're looking for. So now I'm going to add one more thing, one more formatting, and see how much that will reduce. So I'm going to add some of value into size. And now we're going to do, tell me how many files do you see? So I got the first answer. So they came at 6 seconds. It was a little bit less of before. So like I say, size, color, anything that you can add into your visualization works. If you're working with tables, sometimes it's really hard to move people away from tables, but how you start transitioning to more visual, add colors, add sizes, right? But what if instead of a table, we all were to say, here's a chart, okay? I have number 5 selected. You can easily see that we have around 14 files, right? We have 13 6, and we do have an average of 11. How fast was this? You know, like in 1 second, you could see, you can pass the message. In 1 second, you can tell people you have 14 files, you have 8 9s. So I hope this exercise helps all of you to see why it's so important to go visual. And I think it goes really well with learning about everything we learned today, and just emphasize this in your organization. Take your users that are used to using tables, add a little bit of formatting, and eventually move them into the visualization part. So this is it from me. Any questions?
This was really fun, and I would encourage everyone to do kind of a similar exercise. You know, if you got an internal user group or even lunch and learns or something, because what we find is a lot of people still want to use these crosstabs and tables and other types of, you know, visuals that really not visuals. This is a great way to showcase not just, you know, the simplicity of it, but look at how many responses on that initial question were so varied.
Yeah.
This is why I say they're dangerous. You know, having people, you know, get the data directly and do their own math and counting, not good. You know, if there's a way to blend the two, great. But, you know, I love that after the fact, you know, here's the bar chart, here's the number, here's how many, you know, you got the answer right there. You didn't even have to think about it.
Exactly. That's the key. You don't even have to think about it. Remember the span of attention. Span of attention, guys. So I will share this workbook. I'll send it to you, Michael. And anybody can use it. I think that will be awesome for a game.
Yeah, what we'll do is, you know, any of this material we'll start to put on the Tableau public side of things. You know, we're going to talk about that in actually just a little bit here. So a good segue. Adriana, thank you so much. Let me go ahead and you know, share my screen, and you know, we'll kind of get started in a bit.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, let's see. All right. Yeah, so the workbook that Adriana shared, you know, kind of gamifying that scenario, we'll put on our Tableau public profile. We'll share that out. But also, we want to make sure that everyone's aware. You know, if you're looking to skill build or demonstrate your talents or capability, make sure you have a Tableau public profile. Adriana, if you can plug in the chat, you know, the link to Tableau public.
Yes.
We want to make sure that everyone gets signed up. You know, it doesn't matter if you have a fully versioned license of Tableau desktop. We want to see what you're able to do. You know, if you're looking to, you know, just break into this market, or, you know, showcase some new talents or look for new opportunities, best way to do that is to show what you can do. And Tableau Public is the vehicle really that's going to help you get there. Not only that, but this Tableau Trivia segment is really going to help promote that as well. So if you're not familiar with the Tableau community projects, you know, so sorry, we're going to actually show you what that looks like here in just a moment. I can get to my screen. There we go. So the community projects, overall, if you go to tableau.com/community and then community projects, I think I posted that into the chat earlier. We'll do it again here in just a moment. This is a group or a collection of different projects throughout the Tableau community that are spearheaded just, by people like you and me that help promote different aspects of what you can do in Tableau, or through sustainability or different industries, or social means, if you will. We've got a lot of these. So Makeover Mondays, really focusing on kind of the visual aspect of how to improve, enhance your dashboards through different exercises and challenges and iterations and the community support. Workout Wednesday is another popular one where it actually kind of gets into more of the engineering. How do you actually do something? How do you build something? How do you make it work this way? So this is another great weekly challenge that has been going on a long time. So two of the most popular ones here, the Makeover Monday, Workout Wednesday, make those a part of your weekly routine. If not, at least just get in there and, kind of poke around and play. This is how you're going to upskill. And then we've got a ton of other ones: Visual Social Good, Force Viz Sunday, Iron Quest, storytelling with data. That's another big aspect of what I think we need to make sure that we do a really good job of in our organizations is how do we tell a good data story, rather than just throwing numbers up on a dashboard and, hoping someone understands how to interpret that. So these are all exercises, challenges, initiatives, if you will, that are going to help, in different aspects of your Tableau journey, your ability to maybe give back to the community. We see in different industries here, education, healthcare, public policy, a lot of great stuff. So again, go out to the Tableau community. This is all part of that, and participate. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna actually get started with our game. We see a number of people already signed in. You can go out to the website, kahoot.it, plug in the pin 151346. We'll give it about a minute, and then we'll start the game. So again, this is all going to be based off of the community projects, the link that we just shared, we looked at. So if you're brand new to that, this is your first time viewing it, you got about 30 seconds to memorize pretty much all of those, and let's see how you do. What we'll end up doing, the top 3 winners from today's session will get you some nice Tableau swag. So do make sure you stay on the line, and winners, reach out to me or Adriana and get us your email address. We'll get in contact with you, get a mailing address, and just some nice Tableau swag. All right. So if you're on a mobile device, this also works on mobile. You can go ahead and select your QR code. Let me just bounce back over to that. Here's the information. Actually, it would be helpful if I actually spelt this right. Sorry, guys. All right, Kahoot.it. The game pin is 151346. All right, everybody got that? All right, we got some more. Give it another 15 seconds, and then we'll start.
Sorry, I have a basic question.
Sure. What's the question? Is that on this side?
Yeah. How do I connect to Kahoot? I have the app open.
So there's a couple ways you can connect. If you have the actual app, it should ask you for a game pin. If you're on a web browser or your mobile device, you should be able to go to the website kahoot.it. If you're on kahoot.com or something else, you're probably in more of a creator mode. So you need to be at kahoot.it. Once you're at that website, it'll ask you for that game pin, and then you can launch into that mode there.
5, 1, 3, 4, 6.
Let me go ahead and here's another quick way.
Thank you so much.
Sure. All right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Now, everybody will have about 10 seconds to answer these questions. The faster that you answer, the more points you accumulate. So which of the community projects allows you to access over 300 data sets, create better, more effective visualizations? Makeover Monday, absolutely. So again, a lot of these other projects kind of help drive that, but the initiative or the focus for Makeover Monday is exactly that, help you to create better, more effective visualizations. All right. Second question, which community project allows you to build your skills with weekly challenge to recreate an interactive data visualization? Right, Workout Wednesday. That is its focus. You know, this is more on the engineering side of things. You know, it's not always pretty straightforward how a visualization works. There's usually a lot of things under the hood that make things happen the way they happen. Workout Wednesday is one of those community projects that, again, if you're not already kind of signed into it, please look at this. This will elevate your Tableau skills tremendously. All right, got some close races going on here. All right, which one allows you to volunteer, design data visualizations that help nonprofits harness the power of data for social change? Nice, getting the hang of this one. Yeah, Viz for Social Good is one of those things that you can certainly participate with. They've got some great projects and initiatives that you can actually help make a difference. So do check them out. What we'll do is also kind of after the fact, we'll actually on the community page I posted there, you can actually click in there and learn more about all of these community projects. But do take a look at Viz for Social Good. Fantastic program. Allison, you're on fire, overtaking Brett. All right, next one. What is this one? We create and share data visualizations using rich sports themes data set in this monthly challenge. Absolutely, Sports Viz Sunday. So if you're a sports enthusiast or a fan, do check these out. It's amazing, amazing work. I also encourage you to check these out because the things that you can do with these sports vizzes is going to give you some pretty good ideas actually how to transcend some things into actually, you know, the business world. So don't have to be a sports fan to, you know, to take some good advice and strategies from that. Allison's holding on the lead. All right. Which one community project allows you to practice data sourcing, preparation, and visual skills in a themed monthly challenge? Iron Quest. Yeah, so this is a pretty big one. If you're not familiar with Iron Viz, one of the main events at the Tableau conference, this is kind of your preparation in doing so. So not only is Iron Quest, geared towards that, but again, another great community project that will help elevate your Tableau skills. Allison, Britt, Christian, holding on to the lead. All right, next one. Which community project allows you to practice data visualization, storytelling skills, and participating in a monthly challenge and exercises? Storytelling with data. Fantastic. Yeah, and this is a fantastic one. This got a monthly challenge there, but Cole, who kind of runs this thing, has some great books out, just starting to release another book. So do check out that community project. If you have a chance, get the books as well. Guide you in how to do better storytelling with data. Wow, Christian, overtaking everyone. All right.
It's because I
Which
figured out how to
community-
do Kahoot.
There you go. Which community project allows you to uncover new stories, visualizing healthcare data sets that are provided each month? Project HealthViz. Absolutely. Another great initiative. So if you're in the healthcare world, do check this out. Fantastic community project. All right, Britt, you're back on top. All right, the next community project, which one allows you to visualize data about sustainable development goals provided by the World Health Organization? Yes, the SDG project. So again, Viz for Social Good kind of does some similar stuff, similar work with kind of social programs, but the SDG focuses entirely on the Sustainable Development Goals. So do check them out if that's something you want to participate with or get a little more understanding. If this is your industry, a great resource for you to kind of look at. Allison's back on top, on fire. All right. Next one, which community project each month create vizzes on global education, on syllabus topics, as resources for teachers worldwide? So we do have a couple education programs out there, but the Viz2 Educate is focused on that global education syllabus. EDU Vizzes, maybe we'll get to that one soon. All right, Allison, kind of pulling away there. All right, which community project allows you to help learn and prepare data using Tableau Prep? Yes, Tableau Prep community activity is prepping data. So if you're not using Tableau Prep, but you're licensed to, still check them out. It's a great way to learn how to take advantage of the program and all the different use cases you can use in your organization. All right. Which community project allows you to create business dashboards using provided data sets for various industries and departments? Yes, real world fake data. Super fantastic community project. Gives you a whole bunch of kind of fake data in different industries. Allows you to create some dashboards, around, like I said, different topics. So do check out that program. This is also a great way to get inspired on, what works, what doesn't, and kind of some of the ingenuity of the way that these dashboards are created. again, mix of kind of the Workout Wednesday type, if you will. All right, Allison's on top. Samantha's coming in. All right, now this initiative is centered around diversity, equity, awareness, and visualizing with provided data sets each month. Everybody got this, fantastic. Yeah, so this is great for all of making sure that you're understanding diversity, equity, great for especially internally in your organization. But if this is something you work as a passion around helping within the community, do get involved. All right. Looks like we've still got the same 3 leaders right now. Good luck to everyone. All right, this bi-weekly project is helping those who are newer in the community or just starting out with Tableau. And one of my new favorites. Fantastic. So if you don't already promote this internally in your organization, if you've got an internal user group or like a center of excellence, do make this part of this. This is a great onboarding program that you can actually tweak and make work in your organization. But get everyone involved. Such a great program. All right, Tammy's coming up. Come on, Tammy, get this one. All right, next one is a monthly project focusing on using data from your favorite games. I think everyone's getting the hang of this. Yes, Games Night Viz. Super fun. Check this one out. Just like we're doing here, gamification, making things fun and entertaining, but learning Tableau along the way. I think a great way to get people engaged. All right. Tammy's up on the leaderboard. All right, next question. What community project, the monthly data visualization challenge, where we visualize the data behind the music we love? Data plus music, another fantastic community project. If you're a fan of music, do participate. Get a lot of good data from Spotify and some other sources. All right, we've got a couple questions left. The leaderboard looks about the same. All right, now this monthly challenge is covering pop culture and fandoms. Yes, the Data Fam Con. All right. Last question. Faster you respond, more points you earn. All right, this monthly project connects real education data with real people. Yes, EDU visitors. All right, let's see our leaderboard. Allison, congratulations. Samantha, well done. Christian, came back, you did it. You're on the leaderboard. So all 3 of you, please reach out to either myself and or Adriana, shoot us your email. We'll follow up. We'll get some mailing information from you, get you some nice Tableau swag. So
Cool, man. Can you type your email address in the chat?
yeah, we'll certainly do that. Let me go ahead and do that now. All right. And you sure can connect on LinkedIn with us all as well. But as I mentioned, so I know that there was a couple questions. We've got a little bit of time left. So do go out to Tableau Public. This is where if you're going to be participating in any of those community activities, a lot of them you'll be posting, those challenges to your Tableau Public website. This is absolutely free. So again, if you're not already on Tableau Public, go ahead and sign up. You'll get the free version of Tableau, which for the most part is very similar to what you're probably using today, minus some connectivity and being able to save locally. Do not push up confidential personal information, financial information of yours on this website. Anything public, and that's essentially what it is. So the data is public, your visits will be public, but we want you to share. Not only can you do that, but I know some of you have questioned, how do I get jobs and some things like this. There, with Tableau Public, there's the visual resumes that you can create. There's all these programs that you're in, but also in your profile, when you go into your Tableau Public, you can actually set a flag now that you're available for hiring. So if you want to do some freelance consulting or development, check that flag. A lot of organizations will use the Tableau Public, scan that flag, look at your work and see if that's something they'd like to contact you about. So make sure that your Tableau Public profile is kind of like your LinkedIn, where you're pushing this kind of stuff, showcasing what you can do and learn along the way. We want to see anything that you got. Share it with us. We're all on Tableau Public. Let us know. So with that, I want to make sure that we, again, thank our presenters, Sean, Adriana. Thank you so much. Today's group presentation was super fantastic, very helpful. And yeah, we'll see you next month, third Thursday, same time. Do make sure you sign up. Have a great week, everyone, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll share the materials and the links. So thanks. It was fun. Thank you.